Welcome back to Part 2 of Class 10 Science, Chapter 16, Sustainable Management of Natural Resources. In this video, we shall discuss forest and wildlife resources. So let's commence. So forests are biodiversity hotspots. We all use forest produce, but our dependence on forest resources varies. Some of us have access to alternatives while some don't. People who actually use forests are called stakeholders. So there are four stakeholders. First, villagers. Second, forest department of government. Third, industrialists. And fourth, nature and wildlife enthusiasts. Now let's study about each one of them in detail. First, villagers. They are the people who live in and around forest and are dependent on forest produce for various aspects of their life. Now let's see how do they use forests. So they use forests for firewood, to get bamboo to make slats for huts and baskets, to get wood to make tools for agriculture, hunting and fishing. They also use forests as sites for hunting and fishing. They also gather fruits, nuts, medicines from forests, and their cattle graze and feed on other forest fodder from the forests. And the second stakeholder is the forest department of government. It owns forest land and controls the resources from forests. Vast tracts of forests have been converted into monocultures of pine, teak and eucalyptus by forest department. This destroys the biodiversity of the area. Such plantations are a good source of revenue for forest department, and they are also useful for industries to access specific products. Third, industrialists. So many industries are based on forest produce, such as timber, paper, lac, sports equipment. Industries consider forests as merely a source of raw materials for their factories. They are not interested in the sustainability of forests. So for industrialists, they consider forests as only for profit and they don't want to conserve forests. And the people who are fighting for the conservation of forests are the nature and wildlife enthusiasts. They are not dependent on forests but want to conserve nature in its original form. Initially, they concentrated on the large animals, but now they recognize that they have to preserve biodiversity as a whole. So now let's discuss how to manage forests. We need to use forest resources in a way that is both environmentally as well as developmentally sound. But management of forests by keeping the local people out or by using force isn't successful in the long run. Let's see few examples of villagers intervening for the conservation of forests. First is Bishnoi Community of Rajasthan. The second is alpine grasslands of the Great Himalayan National Park. The third is the Chipko Movement, and the fourth is Sal Forest Restoration in West Bengal. Now let's study the facts about each one of them in detail. So first, let's discuss about the Bishnoi Community of Rajasthan. So Bishnoi Community are nature-loving people and have been conserving flora and fauna for centuries. In 1731, Amrita Devi Bishnoi sacrificed her life along with 363 others for protection of khejri trees in Khejrali village near Jodhpur. The government of India has recently instituted an Amrita Devi Bishnoi National Award for Wildlife Conservation in her memory. Second, the Great Himalayan National Park. This national park contains alpine meadows which were grazed by the sheep in summer. When this national park was formed, the shepherds were banned from grazing their sheep in the park. Now it is seen that without regular grazing by sheep, the grass grows very tall, thus preventing fresh growth of grass. Third, the famous Chipko Movement. So this movement originated in a remote village called Reni in Gharwal during the 1970s. There was a dispute between local villagers and a contractor who had been allowed to cut trees close to the village. When the workers of the contractor came to cut trees, the women of the village wrapped themselves around the tree trunks, thus preventing the workers from cutting the trees. The Chipko movement quickly spread across communities and media, forcing the government to rethink their priorities in the use of forest produce. Now let's discuss the fourth example, which is the Sal Forest Restoration in West Bengal. In 1972, West Bengal Forest Department recognized its failures in reviving the degraded Sal forests in southwestern districts of West Bengal. In the Arapari forest range of Midnapur district, A.K. Banerjee, a far-seeing forest officer, involved villagers in protection of 1,272 hectares of badly degraded forest. How? In return for protection, the villagers were given employment in silviculture and harvesting operations. They were also given 25% of the harvest from all these above activities, and they were allowed fuel wood as well as fodder collection on payment of just a small nominal fee. With the active and willing participation of local communities, the previously worthless Sal forests were valued 12.5 crores in 1983. Thus, local participation is very important for forest conservation. So, this was all about this lecture. In the last and third lecture of this chapter, we shall discuss water, coal and petroleum resources. So, stay tuned.